As we go forward, I would hope for you to pay attention to these two things. What we'll be doing is studying the Federalist Papers as the alphabet of federalism in the United States in particular and the world in general. What we want to do is learn how federalism has worked in the United States over this last 230 years and how it has worked in places like Canada since middle of the 19th century, India since its independence, of course in places like Brazil, Germany, Australia, because my hope is that in a few generations we will be wise enough to unite under a federal system after studying all the good things and the negative things that have happened in these federal systems. I have mentioned it before. James Madison, who is known to be the father of the Constitution of the United States, he did two things in preparation to go into the Federal Convention in 1787 to write the Constitution of the United States. In 1786, he studied a lot of books that his friend Thomas Jefferson had been sending from France to him and wrote a few pages of a memo to himself reflecting on the confederations of the world, ancient and modern. He studied all the confederations of the world. And then in 1787, a few months before going to the convention, he studied what had happened in the 13 different states of the United States, especially what had happened in them the prior 11 years since independence. And he wrote a few pages. He outlined 11 things, vices of the political system of the United States, and said what was going wrong in these different states, and that's why this country was in trouble. So we, in turn, over this next few generations, gradually will learn about federalism, its history, because I have no doubt that in a few generations, when we realize that the only way for us to go forward is to unite under a federal system, we in turn can learn from the experiences of these federal countries and unite. Because the system we're living under right now, United Nations, is like the first Constitution of the United States, the Articles of Confederation. It was a broken system. Right now, in a world with population around 7 billion, and in a few decades to be 9 billion, we live under a system that 5 countries, as the permanent member states of Security Council, can make all the shots. By vetoing resolutions, they can stop United Nations dead on arrival and solving any issues. And plus, I want you to think about this. Do you think in a few decades, a country like India, with a population of over 1.5 billion, will be okay with not having a voice or a veto in this permanent Security Council permanent seat when a country with the population of England does? Do you think a continent as huge and as populous as Africa will be okay with not having a voice when the former colonizer with a population of less than 100 million has a voice at the Security Council? Do you think the huge countries of Central America, and South America will be happy with not having a voice when a country like Russia with 150 million people has a veto power? The population of Mexico itself is now larger than Russia. That's not even including Brazil and all these other countries over here. Do you think a country like Germany will be okay as being just +1 in P5+1, while Russia is having a policy, as we have seen, of opposing everything that's happening in Europe? Do you think over 1.5 billion, and soon in 2 decades or so, 2 billion Muslims spread out all around the world will be okay with not having a voice when countries like England, France, Russia, with populations of less than 100 million or just over 100 million, have a voice in the Security Council? It is crazy to think that this is going to be tolerated in 2 or 3 decades. So we need to wake up, start planning from now. We all need to stop being consumers and live up to the full potential of our humanity. Do you think it's okay to be like crazy people, spend all our money in warfare and military spending and not having enough money to get people to eat healthily, to not to have to worry about shelter? It's crazy. So my friends that live here, and in these 2 places, please get your heads out of the sand. This situation is going to change. It's time for you to wake up along with everybody else. After all, we are members of the same human family, and we can do something to change things around, keep this beautiful planet, our home, healthy and beautiful so that we can all flourish.